Well, welcome back to Silverstone, day 2 of the Hagerty Radical Cup UK. Round 14 of the championship coming up. This grid that is based on the fastest lap times from yesterday. We've got another 30-minute race to look forward to. The combined grid for the SR3s and the SR1s. The SR1s go off about 20 seconds after the main pack. And as we say, with the grid being based on the fastest lap times from yesterday, it's going to make it quite intriguing with two of the main championship protagonists lining up there on the front row of the grid. Coming into this weekend, Daryl de Leon was leading the championship, but he is at the moment up at Croft racing in the British Touring Car Championship and may well be focusing on that for the rest of the year. And with James Lay claiming a win yesterday, his 7th of the season, and Ben Caisley, who is 3rd in the championship non-finishing, not only does James Lay pick up the championship lead, he also extends the advantage that he's got now between himself and the absent Daryl de Leon and retiree from yesterday, Ben Caisley. So it's going to potentially be a pivotal weekend of racing depending on what goes on in this race and round 15 that takes place later on today. So the cars are weaving around to try and build some temperature into their Control Hankook tyres. The BMW safety car is leading them round, and it's key that they try and build the temperature. It's a cooler day today than it was yesterday at Silverstone. We've still got that breeze blowing through on the former RAF base, which can trace its roots back as a motor racing circuit back to 1948, when it largely used the runways and a bit of the perimeter taxiways. 1949, it largely then started to look a bit like the configuration that we know it now. Of course, that new arena section was built back in 2010. Let's confirm the grid then for you for round 14 of the championship as the cars continue round on their formation lap, and they line up as follows. James Lay, with 7 wins under his belt, lines up on pole position, and alongside is Ben Caisley, who was quick yesterday, did lead but retired. Hector Hurst and Jack Tomlin, who had a brilliant run, line up there on row number 2. The third row of the grid is John McLeod and Jason Rishover. And row 4, Hayden Chance, who had a busy race yesterday alongside Mark Williams, who finished on the podium for the first time this season, finished 3rd yesterday. The next row of the grid is row number 5. It's the man from North America who regularly races in the Canadian North American Radical Championship, Austin Riley, alongside Andy Lowe. And it's Peter Tyler and Dan Headlam that line up there on row number 6. The 7th row of the grid is number 88 car, Vyacheslav Jalonka, alongside the 77, which is Alan Geshev. And then row 8 of the grid is Rob Greenwood and Ami Faisalin. As we head on to the next row of the grid, it is former World Superbike champion Selvin Guintoli that lines up alongside Wesley Fongini, with Jack Lang and John Davis sitting there on row number 10. And Chris Preen is there on row number 11. Here's the last of the Radical SR3s. So in theory, pole position for the SR1s is the number 74 car of Theo Mercuris, who took his 7th victory in the SR1 category yesterday. The next row of the grid, which is row number 12, is going to be Shane Stoney, a former SR1 champion from a few years ago, alongside a double former SR1 champion, number 33, James Pinkerton, who runs in the invitation class this weekend. Then it is Tom Wood alongside Oscar Joyce and George Nutton and Christian Brooks that sit there on the next row of the grid, which is row number 14. Row 15 of the grid, Sven Thompson. He is a motorsport team owner and manager, but is turning his duties to racing this weekend. He has got for company James Ockenden, and then it is Ashley Gaunt and Jack Leese that sit there on row number 16. The 17th row of the grid is going to be Bradley Gaunt, the second member of the Gaunt family, alongside the car of Darren Nutton. And then this is going to be Michael Williams and Jose Carvalho that sits there at the final row of the grid. You could see the flag waving, the Union flag on the top of the BRDC Centre. And you can tell that it is rather breezy here at Silverstone. Not, I don't think quite as breezy as yesterday, but certainly ambient temperature and track temperature are that little bit cooler, which does suggest that the cars may react differently today around the Silverstone circuit than they did yesterday. And of course, the cars have not been on track today. It's the first time they've been on track since round 13 that took place yesterday afternoon. So here we go. There are 30 minutes on the clock. The red lights are on. James Lay is in the black and the blue car on pole position. It's the grey and the lighter blue car of Ben Caisley that's alongside. The lights go out and the pack charge their way up towards Copse for the first time, and it looks as though it may well be Hector Hurst that's had the best start of everybody, because he was looking to squeeze his way through. Watch out for that number 3 car, Chris Preen, off the back of the grid, arguably one of the quicker drivers in the championship, but he retired at turn 1 yesterday. But it is James Lay that leads the field from Ben Caisley in 2nd place. Hector Hurst is there in 3rd. Jack Tomlin is in 4th place. The SR1s now get going, and it is going to be, is it Theo Mercouris that is going to lead the pack? It is, but Tom Wood is trying to go around the outside of everybody to pick up the lead of the race if at all he can. He hasn't made it though. It is Theo Mercouris, I think, for the SR1s that still leads the charge as they head up towards Maggotts and Beckett's for the first time. Yeah, it's Theo Mercouris that leads the way for the SR1s in the early stages, so the man who leads the championship generally, looking to see what he might be able to do. Tom Wood is there in second place of the SR1s in the early stages. Back to the SR3s. Jack Tomlin trying to draw himself alongside Hector Hurst, who was having none of it. They head through the left and then the right flicks at Club Corner. And then the speeds start to build once more. There is the number 200 car of Austin Riley, who retired yesterday. Same man who's done lots of racing radicals over in Canada and the North American Championship. Chris Preen still weaving around to try and get some more temperature into his tyres in the early stages. He'll be a car certainly to watch out for, the number 3 car. Chris, who say we were expecting to have had a good run yesterday, but it all went rather wrong for him. He qualified third for yesterday's race, but was tangled up in 2 or 3 cars which all had a spin in the early stages. Further down through the order, the SR1s are busy. It looks as though Theo Mercouris has had a problem there, because he's dropped from what was the lead of the SR1s down to about 7th or 8th in the SR1s, and it's the number 20 car, the grey and the yellow car of Tom Wood, that leads the SR1s. Theo Mercouris, yeah, he's mid-pack compared to where he ought to have been, so there's been a moment for him somewhere out on circuit. He's still continuing, there's no obvious signs of any damage to a car, but maybe a little bit of a moment for him. And again, he's slow coming out of that corner, and it looks as though the championship leader is slowing. Something is not right with the number 74 car. 7 wins yesterday. It's not going to be an 8th today, because even down to Wellington Straight, you can just see the body language of the car suggests not all is well. So for Theo Mercouris, that is not at all what he would have wanted. For the lead of the race, the leading pair getting away. So Ben Casely still trying to stick with James Lay as the two of those weave their way through the Beckett's complex. Hector Hurst still coming under pressure from the blue car with the red flashes in the hands of Jack Tomlin. That's for 3rd and 4th position. John McLeod in the Dayglow green car is not too far away in the background, and then you've got Jason Rishover, who concludes the top 6 just after that at the wheel of his silver and light blue and yellow machine. So flicking their way through Stowe Corner for the second time of asking, is Jack Tomlin trying to key up a move here heading in towards Club. It's a heavy braking area, but he's not going to try it there, so he'll sit behind Hector Hurst. The all blue car in 3rd place, Jack Tomlin in 4th, and then build the speeds again as they flick their way onto the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight, past the wing. The black car with the Dayglow orange flashes in the background is Mark Williams, who went to the podium for the first time yesterday and actually won the Fangio class as well for the slightly older drivers in the field. That's the first time this season he has claimed an overall podium, and the first time this year he's won the Fangio category as well. I think he'll be sitting 2nd in Fangio at the moment, because the car ahead of him, Jason Rishover, will be leading that. So 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. You could argue 8th as well, all not that far away, because Hayden Chance has almost caught on to the tail end of it. Back to the SR1s, briefly. That was Jose Carvalho that we saw briefly there. But the main pack of cars is just coming through Luffield Corner and about to head over the start-finish line to conclude one further lap. And it still is that good fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Hayden Chance trying to make it 8th as well, as the number 13 car looks to try and edge up ever closer to those around. Dust being raised as some of the cars just run wide coming out of Luffield Corner and build their momentum heading down the National Pit Straight. There is Hayden Chance, so here's the car that hasn't quite caught up to the pack ahead, but he's in 8th position, and you can see the queue of cars that lie ahead of him at the moment. Here they all come. Hector Hurst, Jack Tomlin, John McLeod, Jason Rishover, Mark Williams, then Hayden Chance, then finally a little bit of a gap back to Andy Lowe, who's there in 9th place, and 10th at the moment will be car number 77, which is Alan Geshev. So down the straight, a flash of the lights for Jack Tomlin to let Hayden Chance know that he's there. Anything he can do to try and put off the driver ahead. But for the moment, there's no chink in the armour for Hector Hurst, just making sure he brakes in the right places, grabs the apexes, gets cleanly off the corner, and that is going to make it ever harder for Jack Tomlin to try and unlock the door. He's having a nibble this time as they're heading towards the braking area for Club. Try to sneak up the inside. Hayden Chance not giving him any opportunity to squeeze his way through, so the order still remains the same between the pair of them. as they get back on the throttle again and head past the wing. And at this time it looks so Jack Tomlin has got a good run going up towards Abbey Corner, but you need to be a bit brave to overtake in a Radical at Abbey, because it is pretty much flat out through that right-hand kink. It then brings you up to the left-hand kink at Farm, and then the heavy braking at Village is probably the opportunity, but he's not going to try there. So Jack Tomlin still remains where he is. Andy McLeod is also just covering off any move in the number 14 car from the car that's behind him, which is Jason Rishover. So it's a bit of a stalemate at the moment. And then the black and Dayglow orange car of Mark Williams has now got Hayden Chance fully in his slipstream as they head out of Aintree and down the Wellington Straight. So this is the opportunity here, get the toe down the straight. Hector Hurst trying to defend from Jack Tomlin. In the background, it also looked as though Mark Williams was trying to defend from Hayden Chance, and as it is, the order still remains the same between them all at the moment. They are close to each other. The problem is that they're in the dirty air, and therefore it is just affecting the amount of airflow over the front of the car. So you get close, but through Copse Corner in particular, which is a very quick right-hander in these cars, you haven't got the same amount of airflow over the front of the car, so you do sort of understeer a little bit. So you have to back off just to try and get a better run then coming out of the corner and see if you can gain some momentum heading up towards Maggots and Beckett's, which is where they're heading now. Fantastic section of corners, particularly in these cars, where you really, as a driver, feel the G-force, I'm sure. So through Maggots, through the Beckett's complex, get a good run coming out of Chapel Curve and onto the Hanger Straight. Jack Tomlin this time looks as though he's got a reasonable run on Hector Hurst. Is it going to be close enough this time? Hector Hurst is trying to break the toe on the car behind him. Andy Lowe is looking to get the double toe and off, and I'm afraid into the gravel trap. That is the number 20 car that's gone. That's Tom Wood, who was leading the SR1s. So Tom Wood was leading the SR1 category. It's now going to put the 89 car into the lead of the category, which is Shane Stoney. Under attack is Hector Hurst. Jack Tomlin trying one way to attack, but now needs to defend from the car of John McLeod, who's now looking to go all the way around the outside at Club Corner if he can make it stick. Jack Tomlin looks to try and squeeze him towards the curbs on the exit. Tomlin's still got the inside line as they head up towards the flat-out kink at Abbey. But has John McLeod got the job done? Yes, he has. Sweeps across the nose of Jack Tomlin, takes the place away, and Jason Rishover now has better momentum and might see if he can steal the march on the run into the braking area for Village Corner. So Tomlin just losing to one place for the moment, as Rishover can't make it through. But now Jason Rishover is in that dichotomy. He wants to attack, he's got to defend. He's got the Dayglow orange car of podium finisher for the first time yesterday this season, Mark Williams, behind him. Great fight that it is, and all of this hasn't really allowed as yet Hector Hurst to pull away. So Hector Hurst is still there in third place, might have a little bit more daylight between himself and the cars behind, but not much in reality. And there's a car off somewhere there. It must be Tom Wood on the exit of Luffield. Yeah, there is Tom Wood's car. I can see the yellow flags in the background and the flashing lights. So there is Tom Wood. Don't know what's put him in the gravel trap there, but it's an unusual place to go off so early in towards Luffield Corner. So whether he made a mistake at Brooklands, the corner prior, and hadn't quite gathered it up by Luffield, or whether there was a little bit of contact, I simply don't know. But what I do know is, now leading the Radical SR1s is the number 89 car of Shane Stoney, who was runner-up in the Radical Challenge in 2020, but did secure the Radical SR1 Cup in 2019, the former mini racer and Ginetta racer, whose father used to race go-karts some years ago, Chris Stoney. So 21 minutes to go. Good fight amongst the SR1s again. James Ockenden looking to see if he can get to the front of the queue at the moment, but he's got right behind him then, as they head in towards the yellow flag zone, Oscar Joyce, I think that will be. Yep, it is the multicoloured car of Oscar Joyce, the number 95 car. And then just off that is going to be the first member of the Gaunt family, which is Ashley Gaunt, number 78. Both of the family members running identical liveries. And there is the leader of the SR1. So Shane Stoney comfortably leading the way in the SR1s at the moment. The car that's behind him is going to be James Pinkerton. Half a second behind is James Pinkerton in that black car with the Dayglow green stripe down the centre of it. James Pinkerton is not scoring championship points this weekend. He is a 2 times SR1 champion as well, Pinkerton. He first secured the title back in 2018. Shane Stoney picked it up in 2019, but James Pinkerton won it again in 2020. So they've got 3 SR1 championships between them on 3 consecutive years, these two drivers, heading down towards the braking area for Stowe. Just see the nose of the car dip, down a gear, pitch the car in, pick up the apex, let it run wide a little bit over the curbs on the exit, but not too much. Stay within the confines of the circuit, and then a heavy braking area down in towards Club, where the car flicks through the tighter left, and then it really opens up through the right. You can get on the power nice and early there, let the car run all the way out to the curb, and then start to sweep it back in towards the next apex that brings you on towards the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. Further down through the order, oh, that was Oscar Choice that is tipped into a spin, I'm afraid, there. So the number 95 car stricken on the edge of the circuit. Not sure whether that was Christian Brooks that might just have made the lightest of contact with him. Couldn't quite tell the number of the car. But either way, Oscar Joyce having to scoop it up. In fact, the car has stalled by the look of things. You can see his disappointment, and the car has come to a halt. He's not able to restart it, but he's doing the sensible thing. Yeah, of course, he'll be bitterly disappointed, but fair play. He is pushing the car out of harm's way to prevent any need for a safety car. We now might just be able to cover that with localised yellow flags, so the race, fingers crossed, can still continue. Down the Wellington straight they'll go. We go back to what's going on in the SR3s, and this is John McLeod, who is now looking to try and pick up third place from Hector Hurst. He almost did it on the outside there at Stowe, but Hector Hurst just covered it off on the exit of the corner. They head now in towards the yellow flag zone because of the stricken car of Oscar Joyce, so there's no opportunity to overtake in the braking area for Club. They'll go past Oscar's car, which I think should be okay to just be covered by localised yellows. So Hector Hurst in the moment in the all-blue car still clinging on to third place. They are now, this pack of cars, 10 seconds behind Ben Caisley in second place, who's now dropped to nearly 4.5 seconds behind James Lay, who is still continuing to lead and potentially could be on course for win number 7 of the championship season. Jack Tomlin feeling the pinch as well as Jason Rishover dives up the inside just as the safety car comes out. So did Rishover get that done before the safety car? Not entirely sure. Has the safety car managed to get out of pit lane before the race leader? Yes, I think so. And I think rejoining the circuit there, that looked like Theo Mercuris, and absolutely the timing screen confirming that that car is back on the circuit once more. So Theo Mercuris, who was the SR1 class leader earlier on and is the SR1 championship leader, at least is back out on circuit at the moment and circulating in 33rd position. So the BMW safety car waiting for the pack to catch up. This is because of the stricken car of Oscar Joyce, which I thought we might be okay to go, but the officials clearly absolutely wanting to ensure total safety. So with that car not fully out of harm's way, the decision is taken to go safety car. The one good thing is it's a fairly long lap at Silverstone, so I suspect it might only be a lap behind the safety car, and Oscar Joyce's car is potentially already being winched out of harm's way from where it was pushed by the driver up there at Club. So not quite at the halfway point of the race. Fastest lap times for this race also important, because the fastest lap times that you set in race 2 will dictate as to how the grid forms for race 3. So there is Oscar Joyce's car. There's no damage to it, I don't think, as a result of that light contact. I think it was just a case he couldn't get it restarted. So hopefully our ever-efficient Silverstone marshals will be able to push that car to a gap in the wall somewhere and get it fully behind the barriers. So 5 more than willing marshals giving it a shove onto the grass. Hope the car doesn't bottom out, keep the momentum going. It's slightly downhill where they're pushing it, and then it will start to go uphill, which might be slightly more difficult for them, but hopefully that car, even if it's on the grass there, but more out of harm's way than it was, could be good. There's number 200, so that's a car that retired yesterday, but that's Austin Riley, being run by Tim Gray Motorsport, the Canadian driver, say champion in the Radical Championships over in Canada and North America. Good to see him in the UK Championship. We were scheduled to have our Gulf Middle Eastern champion here as well, which Abdullah Khatib, or Alex Khatib, but he was originally shown on the entry list. The car is here, but I haven't seen him. All right, and there is Tom Wood's car as well, so that's another car that, of course, was in the gravel trap up at Luffield, and the University of Derby student prepared car is now also being winched out of harm's way. So it's probably because we got the 2 cars really. Oscar Joyce is stricken not that far off the track, and Tom Wood's stricken in the gravel trap round at Luffield. 2 together, yeah, bring about the safety car. Let's get both of them out of harm's way, and then we can go back racing for what's probably going to be remaining 12 or so minutes, one would have thought. So let me run you down through the order then. James Lay leads the way. He was leaving by 5 seconds, but that's going to all the laps to absolutely nothing under these safety car conditions. Ben Caisley is in second place, and Hector Hurst, who has had a busy old race, sits there in third place. John McLeod is fourth at the moment, so he'll be leading the SR3 Fangio class for the slightly older drivers in the field. Jack Tomlin is fifth, with Jason Rishover in sixth place. Mark Williams is there in seventh, ahead of Hayden Chance in eighth place. Peter Tyler is there in ninth, and Andy Lowe completes the top 10. Just outside of the top 10 then, it's the number 77 car that's in 11th position, which is Alin Gishev. Then it's in 12th place, Jacek Jalonka. Austin Riley is in 13th place, ahead of Dan Headlam in 14th. Chris Preen is 15th, bearing in mind that he has come from 21st on the grid, hasn't quite made the progress that we would have expected. And then the former World Superbike champion, number 50, Sylvain Guintoli, is 16th as things stand. Leading the SR1s is the number 89 car of Shane Stoney from James Pinkerton and George Nutton. As we go back to racing once more, and it is a brilliant restart from James Lay, who has already got the jump on the cars behind, and that is largely because there was a back marker between himself and the rest of the pack, and of course they can't overtake until they get to the start-finish line, so they were delayed by having to wait until the control line to be able to get back on the power, whereas for James Lay, he can go when he wants to, so already he has extended the advantage quite substantively with 13 minutes to go. From Ben Casey in second place, off is Hayden Chance in the background. I think Jack Tomlin also got tangled up as well, so the number 13 car on the grass. We saw heading off on the left-hand side of the screen what I thought was Jack Tomlin's car, and looking at the shot we get down at the bottom section of the Hangar Straight, it doesn't include Jack Tomlin, and there he is now rejoining, so the two of them tangled up. So Tomlin was fifth, Hayden Chance was eighth, but not to be anymore. Everybody's back together, the battles resume. Mark Williams, who finished on the podium for the first time yesterday, has now got himself ahead of John McLeod, which means I think that'll put him back to third place in the race overall, so he could be heading towards a double podium, not having had one all season. Picked up his first yesterday, could be on for his second today, and now we've got Shane Stoney and James Pinkerton side by side for the lead of the SR1 section of the race. The double champion on the outside, the 2019 champion on the inside. They are still absolutely together. You can see them almost edging each other, so they get very little daylight between each other, trying to almost compromise and side draft. And John McLeod and Jason Rishover have now come together as well. That looks as though that was at the loop where they had a spin. Austin Riley might just go through it ahead of both of them. Chris Preen is trying to fight his way through the order as well, and this is good news for Chris Preen after his problems at turn one yesterday when he retired, because he's now managed to get through and up onto terms with a couple of drivers that are there or thereabouts where he is in terms of the overall championship. Both Rishover and John McLeod continuing, no obvious signs of damage to their respective SR3s. Hayden Chance with some suspension damage by the look of things, so it doesn't look as though he is going to be going any further in the race. .5 minutes still to go as the cars flick their way round through Cox Corner. James Lay is now 8 laps into this race. He's on to lap number 9. He leads by 6.1 seconds, so the gap has come out between the pair of them. And for James Lay, what was it, about 5 seconds, wasn't it, before the safety car, and a lap after the safety car's gone back in. It's at 6 seconds, and that's all to do with that lapped traffic that was just behind him and just ahead of the cars in second backwards. So it really was perfect for James Lay for the restart. John McLeod under pressure from Austin Riley. Just ahead of them is Andy Lowe. So this is going to be for 9th, 10th, 11th. I think Dan Headlam's in there as well in 12th place. And just off the back of those is going to be the next of the cars as well. So yeah, all very much together in towards a heavy braking area at Club Corner. Oscar Joyce's car, as you can see in the background, has been pushed right up against the barriers by the fantastic Silverstone marshals to get that car out of harm's way. The other car that brought about the safety car, Tom Wood, winched out of the gravel at Luffield. So through the right-hander at Abbey they'll go. Sylvain Guintoli pushing hard at the wheel of the number 50. He was another driver that retired yesterday. Still involved with motorcycles. He is one of the MotoGP test riders for Suzuki nowadays. Did briefly race in the British Superbike Championship as well. 2017 we saw Sylvain Guintoli race in BSB. So 10 minutes to go, 2/3 of the way through the race. James Lay leading the way, Ben Casely second, Mark Williams third. It sort of settled down a little bit more at the front. Further down through the order, though, Andy Lowe and John McLeod are still duking it out over the final couple of places inside the top 10 at the moment. It's Andy Lowe in the white and the blue car that occupies 9th. John McLeod's there in 10th. And the Canadian, Austin Riley, right behind in 11th place. For the SR1s, they were side by side, weren't they, last time we picked up on it? But Shane Stoney is now about 7/10 ahead of James Pinkerton for the SR1 category. And George Nutton's having a good run as well. George is running 3rd in SR1s at the moment. And that may well be possibly one of the best results for George Nutton so far this year. He's had a couple of seconds, yeah. Yeah, he's not had a 3rd, actually, in the category. And you could argue it will be a 2nd, ultimately, because James Pinkerton is non-scoring, so he will pick up the points for 2nd. Peter Tyler attacking Hector Hurst and looking as though he might try and draw himself alongside. This will be for 4th and 5th place as they head round through Stowe Corner, but Hector Hurst hangs on to it. Peter Tyler, who's been racing Radicals for a good number of years now, originally started in the SR1 Cup, stepping up to SR3s a couple of seasons ago, as so many drivers have done, actually. One of the drivers who first really started racing in the Radical SR1 Cup was one of the most successful Olympians we've ever had, Sir Chris Hoy. That was where he first started racing, in the SR1 category. Jason Rishover heading towards the camera now, still looking to try and recover from his spin when he was tangled up with John McLeod. No obvious signs of damage. He's back in 7th place at the moment, the number 23 car. Back to what's going on for 4th and 5th. Peter Tyler hounding Hector Hurst all of the way around the circuit. Peter Tyler was 4th in the championship standings coming into this weekend. His best result of the season was 2nd position, and that was in front of the British touring car crowd at Alton Park last time out. He's had a couple of podiums so far this year, but even if he gets past Hector Hurst, he is still then another couple of seconds away from getting back on the podium yet again, because that's the gap between what is Hector Hurst in 4th and Mark Williams, who occupies that final podium spot in 3rd at the moment. And Mark Williams is also now leading the Fangio category in the SR3s. 7.5 minutes still remain. The lead advantage has stretched to now nearly 7 seconds between James Lay, and that looks as though that is slowing down out on track potentially. And is Bradley Gaunt probably recovering from a spin, and then has another moment as he heads out of the loop. So Bradley Gaunt gathering it up. Novice Cross still on the back of that car. I think Bradley's done more than 6 races now, so should be able to pick up his licence upgrade to remove that sticker. And in the pit lane is Jack Tomlin. Jack Tomlin had been going really well, hadn't he, at the wheel of the number 60 car, but he was involved in that contact with Hayden Chance, which puts Hayden Chance out with suspension failure. So I do wonder if there's a problem for Jack Tomlin as a result of that skirmish between the pair of them, going through Maggots and up towards Beckett's on the first lap of the restart after the safety car came back in. So here is our Radical SR1 leader, Shane Stoney. So he was the 2019 SR1 Cup champion. He's got the 2018 and 2020 SR1 Cup champion behind him. Shane Stoney trying to break the toe on James Pinkerton, weaving around one way, weaving around the other as he heads down the Hanger straight. But every time he weaves, James Pinkerton just follows the car ahead of him. So I don't think a great deal was gained there. And there is George Nutton, the number 45 car, that is currently running 3rd in the SR1 category. We've got a 5-second penalty going out for one car out on circuit, and that is Christian Brooks for Valor Racing. His SR1 has transgressed the circuit limits one too many times. Down the Lewis Hamilton straight come the leading pair for the SR1s, and Shane Stoney's having to work hard for this one. So we've seen Shane out in Radicals over the last few years sporadically. Did spend a period of time racing Ginettas and a chunk of time racing in the Mini Challenge as well. James Pinkerton sitting right with him though. He had sort of dropped away a little bit, but he's found extra momentum and is working overtime now to try and close the gap. It was just 0.4 of a second as they came over the start-finish line. Pinkerton, this is all for pride for him and bragging rights, because he is not scoring championship points. He runs in the invitation class over the course of this weekend, the double former champion. But he's trying to hunt down Shane Stoney, who is on the brakes and pitching the car in towards Brooklands. Shane Stoney we haven't seen huge amounts of, really. We didn't see Shane all season until he appeared at Alton Park, where he claimed a win and a couple of seconds in the 3 races there. And he is potentially on course to scoop up another win here his second of the season. Looks as though the penalties are racking up as well. John Davis this time at the wheel of the number 9 car has picked up a 5-second penalty for transgressing the circuit limits. Circuit limits have changed this year as well. You used to be able to put the tyres to the very edge as long as a part of the tyre was in contact with the curbing. And when I say the curbing, I mean, as it is here at Silverstone, the black and white curbing, not the orange stuff or the green painted stuff. As long as part of the contact patch, the tyre, was still in contact with that curb, then that was good. But now, from the 1st of June, the regulations change. It now means that any part of the tyre that goes beyond the curb line, so even if it's just a millimetre of the outer edge of the tyre goes beyond that black and white painted curb, that is a transgression of the circuit limits. And those new rules came in on the 1st of June in UK motorsport. Chris Preen and John McLeod busy fighting away. This is going to be for 8th and 9th place. John McLeod in the 14 car recovering from a spin. Chris Preen in the number 3 car recovering from retirement yesterday and therefore didn't set a lap time, so started off the back of the SR3 grid. So for Chris Preen to have come from 21st to 8th, that's not a bad performance so far. Because he's done lots of overtaking though, has he got a clean lap in? Because the fastest lap that you set in this race dictates where you start the 3rd and final race of the day, which will be round 15. That's scheduled to take place around about 2 o'clock here at Silverstone. I'm looking at Chris Preen's lap time, his best. Yeah, it's not quite matching the rest. Of all of the cars in the top 9, they're all sort of 2 minutes 3s or 4s or 5s. There's only a couple that are in the 2 minute 6s. So Chris Preen's lap time has been compromised because he's been fighting his way through traffic continually in this race. No such worries though for Ben Lay, our race leader, who with 3 minutes to go is heading down the hanger straight on lap number 13 currently. He leads by almost 10 seconds now. Ben Casely is still in 2nd place. Mark Williams is there in 3rd place. Further down amongst the SR1s, looks as though we've got a good squabble going on as Darren Nutton is fighting away and pushing very wide and onto the curbs. I think that was Darren Nutton maybe being slightly over-ambitious with how far he could push his fellow competitor onto the curbs, and by the look of things, that is going to be one of the Gaunts, possibly Bradley Gaunt, that was just pushed that little bit wide. Also gather that Jason Rishover now in 7th place has picked up a 5-second penalty for track limits as well, so that is going to drop him down through the order because he's involved in a good squabble at the moment. Andy Lowe's busy fighting away to try and hang on to a final place inside the top 10. He's at the front of a little quartet at the moment that's got Austin Riley. Then that is going to be Dan Headlam that's behind. And then the next of the cars after that, I think it's Alin Geshev, is it? No, it won't. It'll be Amar Faisalim. So that's going to be for 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th places at the moment. And Dan Headlam is under attack. Is he going to lose the place? Yes, he does. Black car with the yellow headlamps squeezes its way through. So Faisalim gains a place, the man from the United Arab Emirates, and a spin for Andy Lowe just ahead of them. So he was at the lead of that quartet. Gets on the gas a little bit too early, coming out of the loop, loops the car. He will continue, but he's lost, what, 3, maybe 4 places as a result of that. Whilst James Lay now, our race leader, is on to the last lap of the race, leading by 10.8 seconds. He can easily afford just to back things off. Even the last lap that James Lay did, which is about half a second slower than his fastest lap of the race. Well, that last lap he did was a 2-minute 4.2. That is still quicker than anybody else has managed in the race so far. So James Lay really has got some good pace here. Remember, he is the reigning Radical Challenge champion. He was the 2021 Radical SR1 Cup champion. So 2 championships in 2 years. And with that 7th win of the season yesterday, and his main championship rival, Darrell de Leon, not competing this weekend because he's up racing at Croft in the British Touring Car Championship. Not only did James Lay take over the championship lead yesterday, but he also extended that lead because of the absence of Darrell de Leon, and also the driver that was 3rd in the championship, Ben Casely, suffering a non-finish. Smoke billowing from the rear of Jason Rishover's car. That's just a bit of tyre rub, I think. Yeah, there you can see the right-hand bodywork on his car pressing against the Hankook tyre. But with a lap to go, Rishover will keep pressing on, knowing full well that that tyre will overheat, and if he leans on it too much, then it's very quickly going to remind him it hasn't got the level of grip that he would expect. But it's not going to wear out and punch you through to the carcass, one wouldn't have thought, because it's just a light little rub of the Hankook tyre. Difficulty for him might come in the second of the races, because you are again reasonably limited. Cars are only permitted to use 6 dry weather tyres for qualifying and a whole weekend of racing, so if that one's damaged they'll have to bolt another tyre on, and that other tyre might not be quite as fresh. So James Lay's going to win this one. He's going to pick up top honours in round 14 of the 2023 Hagerty Radical Cup UK. It is his 8th win of the season. It's his 2nd win of the weekend, and he secures top honours in round 14 of the Hagerty Radical Cup UK here at Silverstone. Ben Casely should be through in 2nd place, but he's about 10 seconds adrift, is Ben Casely, as he heads towards the checkered flag. So Ben Casely finishes in 2nd place, and Mark Williams does pick up 3rd. He was on the podium for the first time yesterday, and a bit like buses, you wait for one and 2 come along at once. Mark Williams not only finishes in 3rd, he also scoops up top honours once more in the Fangio category. And I think we briefly saw George Nutton there, parked in the wrong direction, which is less than ideal, because he was heading towards a podium position, I think. 3rd overall in the SR1 category, but I'm sure that was the number 45 car we just briefly saw with its nose in towards the gravel trap. So Hector Hurst through, he finishes in 4th, Peter Tyler 5th. Geshev's there in 6th place, John McLeod, Chris Preen, Jason Rishover, Austin Riley in the top 10. Have we had the SR1 winner over the start-finish line? No, not as yet, because here comes Shane Stoney now, and look in his mirrors, who's there? That pesky James Pinkerton is still there. So the 2 former champions in the SR1 Cup have put on a good display here. Very little to choose between the pair of them. But Shane Stoney is going to scoop up his 2nd win of the season in the Hagerty Radical Cup UK SR1 category, but he was shadowed for nearly all of that race by James Pinkerton, who runs in the invitation class this weekend and therefore is not going to be picking up championship points. And who's going to finish the podium, the overall podium in the SR1s? If George Nutton's was the car in the gravel trap, then it could be Ashley Gaunt, and indeed it is. Yeah, Ashley Gaunt comes through to pick it up and conclude the Radical SR1 Cup podium, and also picks up the SR1 Cup rookie win as well, as he is the first of the drivers home in his rookie season of the Radicals, and that is, you can remain in the Radical category in the rookies as long as you don't claim an overall win, because Theo Mercuris started the season eligible for the rookie category, but then went and won straight away. So it now means that, yeah, he's not eligible for that anymore. So Ashley Gaunt, yeah, 3rd overall, good result for him. Rookie win, he'll be pleased with that one. So another couple of cars to take the checkered flag, including Theo Mercuris, who had a troubled race with that visit into the pit stop, into the pits. But I think everybody now over the start-finish line and having taken the checkered flag. So we've had, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars, I think, either suffer problems or not able to start that race or not able to finish it. But other than that, I think we're about there. So let's confirm the results for you then for round 14 of the Hagerty Radical Cup UK here at Silverstone. It's a win for James Lay, his 8th of the championship season. Ben Casely there in 2nd place, and Mark Williams back on the podium and securing the Fangio Cup for the older drivers in the field in 3rd place. Hector Hurst was there in 4th, ahead of Peter Tyler in 5th place, and 6th was Alan Geshev. John McLeod was 7th. Chris Preen, who started 21st, came through to finishing in 8th place, with Jason Rishover in 9th, and our visitor from Canada, Austin Riley, completing the top 10. Then just outside of the top 10, in 11th place, it was car number 15, which is Amir Faisalim. Dan Headland was 12th, then it was Jajic Shalonka who was 13th, ahead of Andy Lowe, who was there in 14th place. Rob Greenwood was in 15th place. Sylvain Guitoli was in 16th place, ahead of Wesley Fongeli, Jack Yang, and then in 19th and 20th, those are the 2 cars that claimed 1st and 2nd in the SR1 Cup. Shane Stoney claiming the win just from James Pinkerton. And according to this, James Ockenden, in the end on corrected times, will complete the podium for the SR1s, because Ashley Gaunt must have picked up a 5-second penalty very late on in the race, so he drops to 22nd and just misses out on a podium spot in the Radical SR1s. You can see Theo Mercuris, who is the SR1 championship leader. That pit stop meaning the number 74 car had its problems solved. It has scored championship points, but it finishes a fairly lowly 30th overall in the end. And then once we get from Jack Tomlin in 33rd backwards, everybody else was either a non-starter or a non-finisher in round 14 of the championship. So that's it for the moment from Silverstone. We've seen round 14 of the Hagerty Radical Cup UK. Round 15 is coming up for you a little bit later on this afternoon, scheduled to be around about 2 p.m. So thanks for joining us for round 14. How about we see you later on this afternoon for round 15? Goodbye.